Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
So, good morning, everyone. Myself, Bhavik Shah. I'm a technical leader in Cisco, currently in CX Security. Basically, what I do is I look into the enterprise security solutions. We have for a product called Secure Firewall, which is our product, a firewall solution. I am sure many of you would have heard about the firewall, but nonetheless, even if we are not going to touch upon that, I know that today's session is on AI and cybersecurity, but I believe those fundamentals are equally important in order to understand how AI can leverage in cybersecurity, right? Yeah, that's what I do. Basically, I look into larger enterprise deployments, look into their problems, what problems else they face, and then accordingly troubleshoot at the application layer or at the network layer to understand what are the different challenges they are facing, and also at the same time, if there are different features in which a particular product is supposed to work, if it's not working, then we I troubleshoot and also try to bring the resolution as fast as possible, right? So that's what I do. That is my primary forte, or I would say that's the primary bread and butter that I need to do daily. But apart from that, I like to learn new things. I like to learn new skills because in this evolving technology world, you would know better than me because you would realize that each single day there is something new to learn. And if you are rigid to yourself, if you think that you know everything, then that's where you fall apart. So that's what I do. And I keep on learning new things. I keep on contributing to this community like this in whatever small way I can. And at the same time, I also like to learn from different bright minds like you. And it's always mutual in this big cybersecurity community where you learn something and also at the same time you strive to give something. So that's what I have done. So till now, basically, in cybersecurity space, I have led two CTF tournaments back in 2020 and 2021. I'm not sure whether you were able to attend the SecCon, which we used to have every year in October, November. So basically, I built a team of 4 or 5 individuals, and then we hosted CTF, Jeopardy CTF for 2 consecutive years, and we had like close to around 1,000 to 1,100 participations across Cisco. And obviously, there used to be participation from bright minds like you. So that is something which I have done. Apart from that, we did Cloud CTF last year, last year, which was the first of its kind. I know there are different Cloud CTF events which run externally, but in Cisco we did it for the first time, and we also built the platform. I would share the GitHub link for that. You can have a look. So that platform was nothing but an integration with CTFT, which was a front-end UI. CTFT, I am sure many of you would be playing CTF. So it's an open source UI or an open source platform which you can use. So we integrate our front end was CTFT, but the back end we use Kubernetes, we use Terraform. The reason we did that was because what we did was the kind of the challenge or the kind of the framework which we architectured was that you log in to the CTFT with your AWS account which you create. You need a free account. And once you give your account ID and secret key, basically what we do is each of the challenge, when you click on deploy, each of the challenges gets deployed to your tenant, to your AWS account, and then you need to find the flags. So basically, you each of the challenges had a vulnerability. So it was a kind of attack defense, but within your account, and you find the vulnerability, and then you get the flag. So it was well received. And as part of the innovation which we do, so we also submitted this framework as part of Stevie Awards. I'm sure you won't be aware of that, but Stevie Awards. So Stevie is an award, is an industry recognized award which is given to an organization for the excellence which you do in the innovation, right? So that's why we submitted the Scout CTF framework and we got a Stevie Bronze Award in 2022. So that was, I mean, like around in, so it's an pan-India event. So everywhere, each of the organizations in India submit their entries, and then there are line of judges which through which you have to go through. So yeah, it's something which was a proud moment. And apart from that, yeah, I have spoken in different avenues like null communities, the Seasides Conference, which happens in Goa every year. And apart from that, I've been a speaker in Offensive Summit, which we have internally every year in Cisco. And also, I like to spoken in different universities like SSN. I've spoken before too, but apart from that, I recently spoke in ISC and Kerala universities. So yeah, that's what I do. And yeah, my primary interest area currently lies in cloud security. But apart from that, I like in malware analysis or the reverse engineering, something which I'm always keen on learning skills and also improving myself. So yeah, I hope it was not the long intro. And this is my Twitter handle. I mean, feel free to connect. Yeah, I'm not posted for many long time, but yeah, I will make sure that I do it more frequently, and that's my LinkedIn profile. So, couple of housekeeping stuffs, right? Um, I want this session to be interactive, and that's a reason why I've just kept minimum slides. I know that art of AI can go a bit theoretical. I just made sure that it's not that theoretical because I myself, be as a student or now as a professional, engineer, I also don't like long theory lectures, right? Because my attention span is very small. So that's what I've made sure that I've kept the content very less because it's not practical to cover all the nitty-gritties of artificial intelligence in in a 90 minutes lecture. But I made sure that whatever we discussed here, at least it opens the gates for you to start thinking more and to start thinking in different directions. At the same time, I would like different questions. And even if you don't ask me questions, I just made this quiz, a small quiz, which we would, which every one of you uh, can log in, and I would just give a specified amount of time so that every one of you can at least answer so that we can understand that okay, what's the understanding level, and then we can discuss from there. So this is so you can log in from your laptop or from mobile phone, and this is a URL and this is a code. But yeah, not for now. But I think I think the first question we can do that, right? So can all of you log into this minty.com and this is the code. And then I would start the quiz. So the first question, so that if anyone is in sleep, uh, we can make sure that everyone is active. Uh, so can let me know if you have any challenges in going to this. So this is a code 33706426. So go to menti.com in your mobile phone or anything. And yeah, so you need to give your answer. Thanks, Sakshi. Uh, the first housekeeping stuff is don't uh, write your name on this. Just kidding. But yeah, good to know. Yeah, so I'm just waiting for answers. It's um just just to just an icebreaker session, right? Just to make sure that what do you think of artificial intelligence? Again, you can say what is artificial intelligence in cybersecurity, or in general, what do you think about artificial intelligence? Obviously, in last 2 months, there has been a lot of talk around it, right? So yeah, solving problems like humans, absolutely. Copy human intelligence, and I'm sure you would have heard about ChatGPT, right? Or now from Google, it's Bard. So absolutely. So basically, the reason they are using artificial intelligence. So I was reading about this interview from Sam at Altman when he came to India, and there was this Times of India session or a question answer session with him. And one of the basic question or everyone has on its mind is how can AI affect our jobs? And what I mean, in a subtle way, what he answered was that yes, AI might impact the jobs which we're here doing today. But what he clearly I mentioned was that there is always like the way there was an industrial revolution where the manual tasks were being replaced by computers. Similarly, this is another machine level revolution. I mean, on top of the industrial revolution, more importantly, AI would improve the quality of life. And what it would do is basically it would increase the productivity, including us, and it would allow us to think more, right? So he basically answered in both the ways. So that was very intriguing to hear from him. But yeah. So yeah, I think pretty much of us understand the advantages of artificial intelligence and what it brings to the table, right? So yeah, it's basically imitate what we think as humans, or how to solve the problems like humans, or how to give answers which feel like it's an answer given by a human, right? So absolutely. So yeah, that is good. So perfect. I think yeah, we are good here. So I will go back to my slide deck. So there are other questions which should come to it at the appropriate time. Okay, so that brings us to ChatGPT, right? Or search engine. So this slide basically talks about uh, before ChatGPT came, right? The only thing what we had, like maybe for last 15 years, was a search engine, right? So we had this Google search engine on the left, where we used to put any queries, be it answers for our assignments back then, right? When I was a student, I remember that when I had to submit our final year project, we used to research different things. We used to understand that, okay, what are the problems the industry is facing. So we used to use this cool search engine, and then depending on the queries, reading the different responses, and then used to build our proof of work, or used to think of our ideas on which domain we need to work, right? So that was Google search engines, right? Now, back how if you I'm not going into the details how a search engine works, but you would have heard about the term called SEO, right? Search engine optimization. So what it does is basically there's a crawler on the search engine. So depending on the query which you, or depending on the input which you give, what that crawler does is basically it takes your input, maybe it breaks that input in different words, and it looks for all the data which is available on the internet in the form of websites, right? So as part of SEO, you had certain guidelines how you construct your web UI. Basically, you need to make sure there's several headers which can help Google to get the your search results or the results from your website at the top, right? So that's what it used to do, right? SEO. So basically, for example, if you say that I want to understand where the post office, or let's say where the post office is located in my location, right? So what it would do, two important things is it would look for post office keyword in all those websites where it is being referenced. And second, most importantly, it looks for your location. It gives you a location based results so that it's beneficial for you. So, say for example, if I'm sitting in Bangalore, I would be more interested to look for all the post offices which are in the nearby location in Bangalore and not something in Kerala or Chennai. So that's what SEO used to do, right? Now with this chat GPT, right, what it does is it it everyone is saying that it would replace a search engine, but not going into that discussion. But now what it does is, I'm sure you would have seen the ChatGPT terminal. If not, I would show you in some time. But what ChatGPT does is it's basically a command line or basically a terminal based tool where you ask your queries, right? So when you used to ask your queries in the search engine toolbar, now you post your queries in the ChatGPT tool, right? And what ChatGPT does is, again, it does the same thing, right? It has its internal algorithm base place. What it does is it takes your input, divides those inputs into different words or breaks into different letters or words, and then it feeds into the different human-based algorithm which it has created by different scientists. And what it does is then it looks for all the data which is available on the internet, the way SEO used to do, and it gives you pointed responses, right? So, say for example, a simple example, like many of you would be doing coding, right? Uh, I mean, you can unmute yourself. How many of you have used ChatGPT uh, before the session, or at least have started using it, or getting a look and feel for this? You can continue. I mean, once the moderator is there, they can unmute and you can speak. But assuming that at least you would have heard of ChatGPT, and today we would see how the UI looks again. And we would not go into nitty-gritties, but one of the examples which I wanted to give is I would actually give a practical example, right? So last year, we wanted to build a, a tool which would basically do different manual jobs for you, right? So one of them was, so we as an organization, we have 50 to 60 individuals as part of our team, because that's how our team is, right? Larger team. Now, one of the challenges what we faced was, um, so we have different cloud resources assigned to us, right? AWS, Azure, and GCP. So generally, most of them uses AWS depending on the requirements. But what I do is, like, let's say we have a tenant which has been created, and we create a user as part of that, right? So we log in with that tenant, that admin user, and then we start using different resources or different services which we want to deploy in the AWS, right? But one of the challenges is when one of the engineer goes away or leaves a team, right? We have no accounting that how many resources he has built, how many services which he has built is still running, and is it required or not? Because each of the services, when they are running, they build to your organization, right? So one of the problem was how can we cut down those billing cycle? How can we cut down those larger infrastructure costs, right? And one of the problem was how do we monitor this, right? And that's where we came up with this idea that how about building this script on top of that, a Python script, which would monitor this, and at the end of the day, it would just give a list of resources to an admin that each individual has deployed which resources, right? And it's the job of the admin to see that if that individual is part of the team or not. And if he's not part of the team, he can just, as part of the script, he can just say that, okay, go ahead and delete this resources. Now, as part of this plan, right, we dedicated ourselves 1 week of time to build this script, okay? Because, again, we are not efficient coders like you. But let's say we told ourselves that hey, we would give 7 days of uh, dedicated time and we would build this module. The first day when we said, we just heard about ChatGPT 2 days back. That's when OpenAI launched to the entire world, and we started using it. And believe me, the 7 days of work was just done in I would say 4 hours in a single day. And we got obviously the code which ChatGPT gives, you need to modify. It won't run the way it is being listed. But what I'm trying to say is basically it just saved the time what we were doing, right? Which means that what ChatGPT did was, if I was able to open 10 Stack Overflow pages for different queries which I had, what ChatGPT did was it basically articulated or basically looked at all the 10 Stack Overflow pages and just gave one final solution of how the code would look like, right? Obviously, there were errors in that, and it took time to fix that. But the 7 days of work which we thought would be finished was just finished in one day or four, right? So that's the power what ChatGPT brings us. Obviously, there are disadvantages like it requires more compute power, not from an end user perspective, but from the system where they are being deployed. And in as part of a chat GPT, the data which it relies is on the internet, right? It relies on the internet, and it also relies on what kind of queries you are asking to the search engine, right? So on the left side, when we used to put queries on the search engine, it is you as a human who used to put different queries, and depending on that queries, the search engine used to get the response for you. Similarly, ChatGPT relies on that and kind of queries which you are asking on the internet. That is one dependency, and the other dependency is obviously all the internet kind of data. So say for example tomorrow, if there's no data on the internet, or all the data on the internet is hacked, then ChatGPT is of no value to you, because it does not generate data on its own. It just builds a context around the data which is available on the internet, and it gives you a response depending on the query which you ask, right? So does it make sense till now? And believe me, in ChatGPT, you need to ask right questions, right? If you don't ask right questions, you are not going to get right answers. Similarly, what we used to do in search engines, right? If you ask specific queries, then you get the responses faster. But if you ask, a query which is not to the point, you would get answers at a very delayed space, right? So that those commonality remains, but that's what ChatGPT is about, right? I would quickly show you the console and then we would move down. So as you can see that these are my past queries which I put, right? So as I was saying, this is a project. Just a minute. It's asking for. Okay. So as you can see that it's a terminal based. So you put your queries here and then it gives you a response, right? So this is specifically what I was talking about, the project which we built, right? Where we dedicated ourselves 7 days, but it was being done in only a single day. So this is how it gives you a response. You need to ask specific questions, that how do I extract flow logs with specific IP on AWS, and it would just give you all the steps, right? So basically all this data it takes from the internet, from different Stack Overflow pages, right? But basically it gives you the response in a concise way, right? So that's the beauty about ChatGPT, where you get the framework on what you need to build, but obviously you need to make changes on top of that. Okay, clear? Any questions? So I'm sure many of you would have used ChatGPT, right? Yes, no, or this is the first time you're seeing the console.
Sir, most of us are familiar with the ChatGPT.
Okay, fine. So yeah, I mean, I would, yeah, I mean, it really helps you in all the monotonous work you do, the repetitive work. It really helps you in uh, not wasting that much time in doing that, and basically putting the time more efficient time on doing more efficient stuff, right? So that's where it helps. So yeah, coming back to our discussion. So yeah, that's the difference between the search engines and ChatGPT. So that's how, as I mentioned, right? So initially we used to put this query in the search engine, what SEO or the search engine optimization, which was the underlying algorithm which most of the search engine or Google deployed was. What it used to do is it used to use a keyword AI and used to see in all the websites which are being deployed over the internet, right? So that's what it used to do, and that is what the response used to look like, right? Coming back to ChatGPT, your search engine is now replaced. It's a text-based response where you put your query here and then you get the response like this, right? So as we just now saw on the console, this is a text-based tool. I mean, obviously going forward, they would have image-based where you can give image as an input and then it would generate the responses accordingly. Now you would have seen different I think, ma'am, now you can mute if they are not speaking. I think when I want an interact because there's a disturbance which is coming.
Yes, sir. Good.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So, yeah, so it's a text-based tool, ChatGPT, right? And I think Bard, I have not used it, but it looks to be the same. But going forward, you can give input not only as a text, but you can give input anything, right? Be it an image or anything, right? So this was what I was asking, right? That okay. So uh, that's where we are, right? That there are many discussions which are happening, right? That would ChatGPT replace the SEO? And this is the question which I asked ChatGPT itself, right? And you can see that it has its own version. It says that both of them has its own value, where search engine optimization would continue to have its impact, and ChatGPT would also have continued to have its impact in different ways, right? So both are going to coexist here. Again, the idea of this talk is not about to have a discussion on this, but I just wanted to have an understanding, right? Because when we talk about ChatGPT, we are no longer using our search engine optimization. Does that mean that is no longer required? The answer is no, right? So So what is the underlying architecture of ChatGPT, right? So it's based on a large language model, right? And obviously there are different versions which come with GPT. Like when it was launched, it was 2.4 or 3.0. Now it's cheap. Now it's 4.0, the version. But the underlying architecture, the underlying model is based on large language model. So what is a large language model, right? So it's basically the picture which it shows here. It's nothing but is you can consider it's a representation of our brain. Now everyone of you would be knowing this that our brains is a mesh of different neurons which are connected to each other, right? And our brain gets a electrical signal on our brain, and that signal is passed to our different neurons, and that's how we make a decision, or that's how we act upon different challenges, right? Or react to different challenges, be it emotional, or be it in professional world, be it in sports, or any activities what we do. It's always a signal which is being generated to different neurons and how they are connected. And depending on that, we make a decision, right? Similarly, the ChatGPT or any artificial intelligence is based on this large language model, which has millions of neurons which are connected to each other, obviously, at a machine level, right? Or at a computer level, right? So all these neurons are connected to each other, and each neuron has a specific weight which is being assigned to it, right? Now the weight is basically, as we all say, right? Higher the weight, better the preference of that neuron. Similarly, each neuron has a specific weight associated to it. That does not mean that, say, if one neuron has a weight of 8 and the other neuron has a weight of 5, always a neuron with a weight of 8 would be selected. No, it's not like that. In our case also, depending on the electrical signal and depending upon the brain, our brain decides that which neuron I need to select, right? Depending on that, I make a decision. Similarly, there's machines depending on different algorithms or depending on the different data sets it visualizes. Depending on that, it selects the neuron appropriately with different weights, right? And all these neurons are interconnected at a mesh architecture, and that's why it's called a transformer-based architecture, right? So you can visualize this as the terminal which I just showed you, right? You put a query here. So that query is being feed into the system from the left. And then uh, from the left, once that system is being once the query is being feed or once the data is being input, it then is passed on to the different neurons and the appropriate neuron gets selected, and then you get the responses what we saw, right? So basically the way they do it is along with the weight, they break each word. Like say if you have a 10 letter word, they break each word into 3/4 of that, right? So 3/4 of 10th is what, approximately 7-8 words. So what they do is they break that words into 7-8 words, whatever sentence you have typed, and then that words are being given to each neuron programmatically, right? Dynamically, right? And depending on that, then there is a decision which is being made back to the end user, right? I just
Okay. The battery was going down. Yeah. I hope I'm audible, right? My battery went off. Sorry for that. So, am I audible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's how it works, right? So it breaks all the words into 3/4 of that. So if you say what is AI, it would break into 3/4 of that, and each letter is then given to a specific neuron. And depending on the learning or depending on the different algorithms which are being built, it looks for the data which is available on the internet and gives you the most relatable answers to your query, right? So that's how it works. Okay, so that brings us to a question that why do I need, first of all, artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, right? I mean, why do I need it? And why there is a sudden need of AI? Because cybersecurity was always going on for past 6, 7 years, considering everything is going digital, everything is going on internet. Why there is a need of having an AI in cybersecurity, right? Now, the first, you would also be aware of this, that there are more increasing cyber threats which are happening now when it used to happen as compared to what was happening before. And the reason for that is basically everything is available on the internet, be it your government institution data or be it anything what you need to request. Everything you can do it from the internet with a single click, be it on your mobile phone or from your laptop, right? Which means since everything is available over the internet, the accessibility to everyone is almost the same, right? I mean, the accessibility, when I say, it's the same for a normal user or to a malicious actor, right? That's the reason why you need to have guardrails, or you need to have the appropriate protection for all the resources which you have deployed on the internet. Now, I'm sure you would have read this report, or at least you would have heard from your friends during COVID days. There was a rush, or there was, panic among all of us to have those vaccine slots, right? And initially, I remember during 2, 3 months, there were no slots available. And many of them started using unusual ways of hacking the website, booking the slots, or blocking the slots for their relatives. But what was the other thing which was happening from an attacker perspective was you used to get a message. I mean, I've got messages that if you want a vaccine slot, click on this link. I'm not sure if you received those messages, but many of my friends received it. Even I received it. But considering having, some sense of what security is, I was not prone to clicking those links. But I think one of my friend, I remember, clicked on that link, and what happened was the attacker now then created a reverse shell or a command and control channel where he got the access of his endpoint, where he clicked the link and he did different malicious things, right? And he realized it faster. And the first thing what he did, and he was smart, he just switched off his device wherever he was operating, right? And in that case, basically whatever the connection was being established, that was being toned off, right? I mean, we all know that if I'm hosting the session, if I reboot my laptop, obviously you won't be able to visualize anything because the connection itself is not there. So that kind of threats were happening. And as per a report, as per a Cloudflare report, 87% of attacks were DNS based, which happened from 2020 to 2021. And the only reason for that was everyone wanted that vaccine slots and no one was getting, and they were actually lured to click on this link. So that is one use case. The other use case, as I mentioned, that you need to protect your data, be it the organization, like as an university. Let's say, for example, all your kids or all your academics, I am sure, would now be stored on online, right? Back when I was doing my engineering, it always used to be a single system where only an admin used to have access to it, and more importantly, it didn't had an internet accessibility, which means if you wanted to see your accounts, you had to go to the internet room, which we had back then, and you had to have a permission from the admin to view your accounts, if you missed your hard copies. But that's not how it works today, right? You can have your website which is launched on the internet, and you can visualize your accounts. Not only visualizing your accounts, but you can give your exams over the internet, right? Now, you need to make sure, as an institution, as an organization, as a college, you need to make sure that the data which you are hosting on the internet is secure, and more importantly, it is only accessible to students of SSN. It's not accessible to Bhavik, who is from Cisco. He should not be able to view the accounts of other students. So it's very important to protect your data. And now, most of the uh, uh, most of the network which is now moving from on-prem to cloud, right? Where you have a server which is might be hosted in AWS, GCP, or Azure. You need to make sure that that data is secure, because once your applications are hosted or in the cloud, it's accessible to everywhere, right? Over the internet, because cloud itself resides on internet. So you need to make sure that data gets protected, and you also need to make sure that if that data gets leaked, you have a huge financial impact, right? You have a huge impact on the organization. Like, let's assume that tomorrow, I'm just giving an example, but let's say that any organization's data is very crucial for them. It's not related to finance, but it can also be related to students, right? Yeah, because each student data would also carry our personal identification numbers, our PAN card, our Aadhaar card numbers, and you need to make sure that is secure, because if that gets exposed, then the malicious actors can actually play with your identification number and do malicious things. So you need to make sure that is also secure. You need to make sure that there are compliance checks as part of the data storage which you're doing. Like say, for example, as I mentioned about the personal identification number, you need to make sure that if you're sharing it with your organization, or if you're sharing with your college institution, you need to make sure that the college institution is storing it appropriately, is not leaking it to different malicious actors, right? I'm pretty sure when you open a bank account, right, they always ask for the PAN or Aadhaar card, right? And now there's a mandate from the government that's not necessary to give a hard copy. You can always give a soft copy in the form of Digilock, right? Where you store all the data in Digilock. And more importantly, now government is giving you a masked Aadhaar card where all your Aadhaar number is being masked. And so that even if you give a hard copy, no one can actually can visualize your Aadhaar card number in plain text. So all those compliance checks should be there. And as I mentioned that your network is of utmost important to you, right? There should always be an operational continuity. Like say, for example, you're giving your exams online, right? You need to make sure that the organization's network is all 365 or 24 cross 7 available to you. And more importantly, it's available during the 3 hours of exam which you're giving, right? Because if it goes down, and let's say you have finished 1.5 hours of your paper, and if your network goes down, who knows? Maybe whatever you wrote was not stored, and you have to start from scratch again. Or they might consider that you need to extend your, exam hours because the whatever data which you entered was being lost. So you need to make sure that the network is available, and the way it is available not only from the physical level where you have the internet bandwidth available, but also at the same time no one is attacking your network and you have the appropriate guardrails to protect that. And as last, that's what I was saying about protection against advanced threats, right? You need to make sure that since everyone is available on the internet, you need to make sure it is secure. They are not able to penetrate to your environment and do lateral attacks. When I mean lateral attacks, so say for example, I have access to your machine. Once I have access to your machine, I can have access to 10 different machines which are available in your network, right? Because all of them would be sharing the same network. The IPs would be different, but I can always run different tools to scan what are the different machines or services available, right? So these are the challenges which are available, and that's why there are new and new innovations which are coming in cybersecurity, that how we can prevent the threats, how we can prevent the impact of the threats to on a larger scale, right? So that's what comes to what are. So I would just finish this slide and then we can go for break for 10-15 minutes. But this is an important slide, right? So we just realized, we just understood that why it is important to, I mean, what is the importance of cybersecurity in our life, right? Uh, Now let's understand that what are the different artificial intelligence techniques which go in cybersecurity, right? Whatever we saw for ChatGPT or whatever we discussed, the underlying algorithms which I was mentioning is being built on this three different verticals. It's machine learning, which basically enables machine to learn from data which is available from internet and makes decisions like humans do it. And the way it does is, so think of like this, right? Let's say you have been told to write a code which prints letters from A to Z, right? So what you do, you just take Python script or C code and you just write the appropriate logic which just prints those letters from A to Z. That's it. So what you have done is basically you just wrote a code which takes a particular input or which takes a particular instruction to type from A to Z, and that's what it does, right? But as part of artificial intelligence or as part of the coders or scientists who are working in ChatGPT, rather than writing the code, they write the instructions, they write those algorithms, which basically takes the input, applies different algorithms. What you need to do, like here I mentioned that you need to print letters from A to Z, right? Similarly, it takes those 1,000, 1,500 combinations and then builds an algorithm on top of that. Obviously, all those algorithms would be situation based, would be based on a specific input which you give, right? So they build all those algorithms. What are the different set of inputs which you could give, right? And it builds an algorithm for that. And when I say algorithm, obviously underlying there would be a set of code which would be written. But now the difference is what that code it does is rather than just focusing on letters from A to Z, what it does is it tries to print those letters in different languages. So in this case, it just prints in English, right? But to try to print in different native languages, which maybe a particular country represents, right? So that's way the code is now evolving from a unit-based code to an algorithm-based code, and also depending on the input which you give, right? And it does both supervised and unsupervised learning, right? So what is the difference between that? So unsupervised learning is basically you gave an input, you build some algorithm, and it gave you an output, right? But how do you realize that that output is correct or not, right? How do you make sure that if a human was being asked that particular input, he would have given the same response, right? So that's what supervised learning is. So what it does is basically whatever input it gives to its algorithm or to its machines, the same input it gives to the humans, and it then checks that what is the response coming from the humans, and then it compares it with the response which came from its system generated or from its algorithm based response. And if there is a deviation, they again train the model, they again make some changes so that the response is almost close to what a human would give, right? So that is what a supervised learning is, and that's what ChatGPT did, right? Before it was brought to the world, it basically had a bunch of or thousands or thousands or 2000s of humans, where they basically whatever model they trained, they gave the same set of inputs to the humans. They saw the response and then modified the algorithm accordingly. The other is natural language processing. It basically helps in understanding machines or helping machines to think like what a humans can think of, right? So basically, natural language processing, what it would do is basically it would analyze the text and then generate a human-like responses in the way we saw in ChatGPT terminal. And the third being deep learning, right? You always keep on refining, you always keep on refining the model, right? So you always extract the raw data from the internet. Like if we give the input in search engines or we give the input in the chat GPT, you take that input in the form of raw data and then feed it to your different algorithms. So basically it learns, as I said, that the LLM model, what it does is since the neurons are interconnected to each other, it tries to give the inputs to different neurons and see what are the different probabilities of the responses which can come, and then gives and always keeps on refining its model so that the responses are almost accurate. Now, one of the disadvantage with ChatGPT currently is the model always gets changed post 1.5 years currently, right? The scientists are trying to make sure that it is more faster and always, and now there is a mechanism where in ChatGPT you can always give feedback mechanism that hey, the response which you gave was not correct, this is what was correct, right? So those kind of things they are taking it, but currently the changes gets applied only after 1.5 years, but they're trying to reduce that time gap, right? So these are the three verticals, or you say three pillars of artificial intelligence: machine learning, natural language processing, and deep learning. So any questions before we drop off for a small break? Yeah, ma'am, you can unmute them, and
Yeah, sir. 1 minute.
or I can do it. Just a minute, I can do it.
The thing is, I'm in other lab.
Okay, okay, I can do it now. That's fine.
No doubt, sir.
Okay, I hope it's not boring, right? And it's not sleepy.
No, sir.
Okay, so I think it's 9:20 currently. Let's take a 15-minute break. It's fine, right? And we are back at 9:35. Is it fine?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So Yeah, let's reconvene at 9:35. Okay.
Yes, Praveen sir.